What's up YouTube, I'm Mike, and today I'm back with an update video on my no testosterone, it's not really a cycle. I don't intend for it to be a cycle. We'll see how it goes. 1 week ago, I took all of the testosterone, I stopped testosterone injections. So I have been injecting some amount of testosterone for almost 5 years now. And when I started using Deca and then Mint, eventually my estrogen got out of control. What is abundantly clear now is that while the Mint was causing its own unique estrogen nightmare, the testable amount of estrogen that I have been struggling with, because again, when I went and got all that blood work done on Mint, and my estrogen level was almost 3 times the top end of the reference range, that was only counting the estrogen that is testable. That was an E2 sensitive test. What I should have realized then was that I had a much bigger testable estrogen problem than I realized. It should have been clear, because to have an estrogen level almost 3 times the top end of the reference range, when it's not even counting the 17 alpha methyl estradiol coming from the Mint, it should have been indicative to me right then and there that there was a bigger dragon to slay. Basically, there was a bigger problem going on, potentially even than the Mint was causing. Now, don't worry, I'm not backtracking on the Mint. I still think it's one of the worst drugs ever conceived of by man, because again, you cannot control for it in any usable bodybuilding context, because you cannot know how much estrogen is your system. So I'm not backtracking on that claim, but it is abundantly clear that in my body at least, and possibly in a lot of other bodies out there, Deca causes a massive estrogen problem. Now, whether that is because it aromatizes at a higher rate than we think, or if it's because it upregulates aromatase expression, whatever the mechanism is, obviously I cannot know. What I can know is that it causes me to have to use a metric ton of Arimidex to control it. So at 200 milligrams of nandrolone decanoate and 200 milligrams of test, I was still using close to 7 milligrams of Arimidex per week. I had gone through a whole list of paranoid delusions and blame placing and finger pointing, basically trying to let the problem be anything other than Deca. Why? I don't know. I've always hated this drug until very recently. I got so sick and tired of having joint problems, and despite what Todd Lee will tell you, which is that Deca only temporarily repairs your joints, bullshit. I've been on it for I don't even know how many months now, and my joints are every bit as good today as they were then. I did have a couple of little flare-ups, but coincidentally those joint sensitivity flare-ups came after a week where I was setting 3 and 4 PRs a night. So obviously Deca is a very potent connective tissue supplement, but it's not bulletproof. If your strength goes up to the point where you are setting multiple PRs, week in, week out, that is still going to strain your tendons and ligaments. It's probably a good thing that the Deca does not blunt or mute that effect. Otherwise, you would be much more likely to tear a tendon off the bone if you weren't able to detect when it had been stressed, to the point of breaking, when you had overloaded it. So I definitively overloaded my joints, my elbow joints, a few weeks ago when I hit a max PR on my incline and then followed up with a couple of other PRs on that particular chest day. The following week, my elbows were hammered. They were hammered so bad I thought I had crashed my estrogen. But I digress. So I decided to, I was sick and tired of the estrogen problems. I've been dealing with estrogen problems ever since I first got on TRT. The 1 milligram of Arimidex that they prescribed me with 200 milligrams of testosterone was not enough to control my estrogen. I had to go get blood work, get on a higher dose. Then every single cycle I've ever run, I have had to go through the painstaking process of knowing exactly what aromatizable compounds I had in my system, and then let my estrogen go high, and then treat it down to the sweet spot and go test and approve all of this. So as I've said in multiple videos, with no Deca in the mix, if testosterone is the only aromatizable compound, at 200 milligrams of T, I require 1.5 milligrams of Arimidex per week to stay in the sweet spot. At 500 milligrams of T with no other aromatizable compounds, I require 3 milligrams of Arimidex to stay in the sweet spot. You add Deca to the mix and the entire thing blows up. And so while I had eventually gotten this dialed in, it was still this problem where now I can't add Deca. Now I can't add, there's so many things I can't add to my cycle without having to reevaluate my estrogen all over again. A lot of guys have said that 1 gram of test is like the bottom of the barrel, like that's the sweet spot. A minimum of 1 gram per test a week. I have wanted to do this. I have wanted to try it. I've wanted to try more than that. But every single time I increase my testosterone level, I have to go completely start from scratch dealing with estrogen again, and I just finally said enough. So I got the bright idea that the real reason that we're all running a testosterone base, every bodybuilder, coach, anybody even remotely in the know, will laugh at the guy who's like, hey bro, so I was thinking about running Anavar only or Tren only. And it's like, ha, you're an idiot, you can't do that, you're gonna crash your estrogen. Well, it never occurred to me until my wife started doing hormone replacement therapy and got injectable estrogen because she wasn't making a physiological amount, and we were able to just inject estradiol valerate and bring her straight into this super sweet spot that fixed a lot of her female problems. She was having a lot of the side effects of low estrogen. She had been plagued by these side effects for our entire marriage. And when she got her estrogen level normalized, those side effects went away. I'm not going to get into the gory details on this specific video. I've talked about it in the past. Go watch the rest of my videos as you should be doing, and then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So that was a game changer in our marriage when she was able to solve some of those problems by controlling with surgical precision her estrogen. So one day it occurred to me, why not do the same thing? Why not take the aromatizable compounds out, or the compound, take them out to the point where I no longer have a physiological amount of estrogen? So right now, I'm here to report that 1 week off T, my estrogen is definitively either, it's low. I'm almost positive it's low. It's on the low end of normal. I have not had any Arimidex in 3 straight days, and I have absolutely zero gyno. This is the best my nipples have felt in a long time. I know that sounds weird, but like I have had lumps behind my nipples for years. For the past God knows how many months since I started putting playing with Deca and Mint, they have been painful, sore lumps. And finally, I have gotten to a point after so much misery, 1 week off T, the gyno is completely gone. So the good news is that Deca alone is not causing gyno at this point. Does that mean it will not return? No. My prolactin is also still on the low end of normal. Right now it's probably normal, but it's probably about a 2. So I have had in the past situations where I had gyno with confirmed crashed estrogen and used cabergoline, and it knocked the gyno out. So I am convinced that eventually my prolactin is going to go back up again. I don't know why it's taking so long since I crashed it, but I've had a couple of people message me recently with blood work, and they were on similar doses of drugs, and their prolactin was at, one guy's prolactin was at 13. He was having all of the hallmark symptoms, the like horrible, terrible depression, which is usually what gets me. So right now, what I am taking is 300 milligrams of Nandrolone decanoate, 140 milligrams of Tren Ace per week. That's in 2 10 milligram twice a day doses. So I'm taking 20 milligrams per day, 140 milligrams per week, Tren Ace, 300 milligrams of Deca, 300 milligrams of Masteron. So what is that? 740 total milligrams of gear. I'm taking 500 IUs of HCG 3 times per week, and I'm taking 2.4 IUs of GH. That's what's in the mix. My MK677 right now is down to, I believe, 15 milligrams and continuing to fall because I'm in a cut. I will talk about that, my cut, in a different video. Maybe you've noticed that my face is getting less puffy. You can start to see the holes in my cheeks. Like I told you, that was going to happen when I wasn't eating 600 grams of carbs per day. My androgen load is still very high. I'm still at 700 milligrams of gear per week, and yet my face is leaning out. This is due to lack of carbs and lowered estrogen, as I've been saying for years. So right now, at the end of week 1, on no Arimidex with estrogen that I am confident is getting toward crashed, I feel absolutely amazing. So far, my libido has been phenomenal. Out of control libido, instantaneous ability to get up and get in the game. I have had more desire to have lengthier adult activity than I was experiencing for a while. When I broke my D game and had it broke for so long, it was an incredible mind effing. Like I got to the point where I was, like, adult interaction was terrifying to me because I was just waiting for something to go wrong. There were so many nights that it would be good, then it'd be bad the next day, it'd be good for a while, then it would crash in the middle. Like, there was so much drama going on that it took a lot of successful events for me to start building confidence. I just this week got the confidence back to basically take my time during adult interactivity and try to enjoy my wife instead of basically just trying to rush through the act in hopes that it didn't fall apart in the middle, because that leads to even worse problems than the alternative. So just now recently, things have gotten to the point where I feel confident again in the bedroom, which is a huge, I mean, that there's no way to put into words what that does for a man when he loses his confidence in the bedroom. So everything on this cycle right now is going as good or better as I could have expected. But that being said, we're at the crossroads. We're at the crossroads because I am convinced within the next few days, at a maximum, my estrogen is probably going to be low. I do not think that 300 milligrams of Deca and the little bit of HCG I'm taking is going to be sufficient to keep me in the physiological range. I am so, but keep in mind, there's still some T in there. So I'm on a long ester. I'm on test C. I've only gone 1 week without my shots. So the level is coming down, and it seems like that might help the estrogen to ease down with it. It doesn't seem to be falling off of a cliff, even though I had all that 8X in my system. So right now, we're sort of easing into crashed E2 territory. Now, normally, I would be on the verge of a panic attack because crashed E2 can take a while to fix. So if I crash my estrogen on testosterone, I would not be terribly functional with my wife in a number of different ways. I wouldn't be able to connect with her emotionally. I wouldn't really want to listen to her talk or have anything to do with her. I certainly would have zero interest in adult activity. Even if I got into adult activity, it would be just to hurry up and get it over with. I would not care at all about, I just totally lose all interest in women. It's really, in some ways it's great. I'm not going to lie to you. In some ways, having the monkey off your back and being able to go through the day and not be plagued by sexual thoughts and ideation and drive and need and all of that, in a lot of ways that's great. It also makes me very disconnected from her to the point that it's like I do less checking up on where she's at. It's just, it makes you really not give a shit. And so in a lot of ways that's nice. It's a nice relief for somebody who's as high strung as I am and is as controlling as I am. Because usually I'm on top of it all the time. But it's catastrophic to a relationship. So normally I would be freaking out because it would take at least 3-4 days, really a week, to get my estrogen back to where I was really back to functional again. And for my wife and I, a week of inactivity is an eternity. And so this time I'm far less concerned, because whenever my estrogen gets to the point of being uncomfortable, I have estrogen valerate ready to inject and bring it rapidly back up. So the valerate should get me back into the I mean, I could get myself into the physiological range with one shot if I wanted to. I'm not going to risk it because I don't want it to go high. So I'm going to err on the side of caution and add just a small amount of estrogen when necessary for two reasons. One, I can't know what my estrogen level, well, I can know, but I don't know what my estrogen level is right now. In a perfect world, I would go get an E2 test before dosing the estrogen. I may do that, but keep in mind that test is only going to be kind of a guide because I still have testosterone that's coming out of my system. So whatever the number on that E2 test, while it will be a good guide, it's not going to be completely distinct in letting us know exactly where my dose is going to need to stay. It could, however, help me from going too high. So let's say I go get an E2 test because I'm feeling low, and my number comes back at 10 picograms per milliliter. Well, then I'm not going to take the dose that I would take if it was crashed all the way into the toilet at 0. I would have to dial the dose back a little bit so that I can try to target about 30 picograms is probably what I'm going to target. I'm not decided yet because of the fact that as my estrogen has gone from high to high normal to mid to what I feel like in the last few days was low normal, and today may be approaching out of the reference range, I have not had any negative side effects from being on the low end of normal. So I may only target the low end of normal and see if that is sufficient to sustain physiological functioning, to keep me connected to my wife, to keep my D game functioning. Obviously, as far as I'm concerned, the least amount of estrogen that I can put into my body and still maintain all my physiological functions, that's what we're looking for. That's exactly what we do with my wife. We only want her to have just enough estrogen to function and no more. Any excess of estrogen is just going to cause you to spill all over. You're just going to be fluffy and wet, and except not in the good kind of way. And it's just going to be nothing but problems. She's trying to maintain as close to 6. She's trying to maintain a nice peeled vacuum shrink wrapped look. And any excess estrogen is going to negatively affect that. If you happen to have seen some of our OF content, then you will be able to tell that, so some of the best content, even if it's just bikini, even if you follow her on, some people keep asking for her Instagram, Deca Kahlin. Look up Deca Kahlin on Instagram, DENNAKAHLAN. Deca Kahlin. That's her Instagram. She has another one. You're not following it. Follow that one. It's what you want to see anyway. So, if you look at some of the older pictures where she has distinctly visible abs, her estrogen was low when those pictures were taken. She was on Anavar and some testosterone, I think, and we were not using any estrogen at that point. We didn't know she was perimenopausal, and so she's able to stay a lot tighter with no estrogen at all, or little to no estrogen, but it causes too many problems in the bedroom, and it's not worth it. She already looks amazing even with the physiological amount of estrogen. So in everything in life, you've got to dial things into the sweet spot. I would look freakishly peeled and vascular with absolutely no estrogen. But my joints are going to be a disaster. I'm going to have broke D game. I'm not going to want to go to the gym. So there's always that give and take between the ideal aesthetic and the ideal functional amount of hormones to run, which is why it's always so ignorant to try to replicate what a person looks like in a picture on IG or on the stage or at a photo shoot. Athletes intentionally put their bodies into unsustainable states to get that freakishly grainy, peeled, vascular, detailed, striated look. They cannot stay in that condition year-round and function in a marriage or really function physiologically at all. So when you set some picture that you see online as your target goal, you have to understand that is not sustainable in the long term. So what I'm looking for is a sustainable amount of estrogen that I can control on my own so that I am free to do whatever I want with my compounds. I don't have any intention of raising the Deca up. I may decide to try to increase Deca high enough that it gives me a physiological amount of estrogen. That will be down the road. Right now, what I'm trying to do is cruise on less than, a giant amount of gear. I am cutting, so I want to maintain a reasonable amount of androgens to help me hold tissue in a cut. But I have been blasting large quantities of gear for a very long time, and so I'm trying to come down for just a bit. In the future, I might look at going up to 600 milligrams or even a gram of Deca and try to get my estrogen to come up with just the aromatizable compound. Right now, what I really want to do is I just want to take a break from the estrogen roller coaster. So I'm not going to be adding any more aromatizable compounds. Anything that changes would be the addition of Primo or the addition of Anavar or maybe Anadrol or more Tren, or more Masteron, something down those lines. DHT derivatives, that's likely the only thing that's gonna be coming in and out of my cycle because I want to be able to find whatever dose of estradiol valerate I can that will just surgically align me in the sweet spot so I don't have to keep playing this estrogen game any longer. Hopefully that will be on the low end of normal. I can pin a very, very small amount of estrogen and have the best possible aesthetic that I can get so that all of you guys in the audience can stop crying about my face. I personally don't like the look of it already. My wife loves it. I look back at some other videos where I get what you're saying. My face was definitely fat. I just think that the leaner it gets, the older I'm gonna look, but we'll see how that goes. So my body weight is down to 204.2, 0.6, 204 point something in the morning. That's from a high, well not a high, but when I started cutting, I was at about 211 pounds in the morning. I'm down to 204 point something in the morning. This is on like going into week 2. So I'm probably cutting a little too fast. But that's what always happens because I don't like to eat. So the second that I get an excuse not to eat, I quit eating, and I'm probably losing body weight faster than I really should. But the quicker I get to the condition that I'm targeting, the quicker I can go back into maintenance calories and put a little bit of glycogen and water back into my frame and fill it back out a little bit. It is difficult to look at my body every single day goes by losing some of that puff. Yeah, I'm getting more grainy, but I can feel the volume, just coming down, the total size of my body coming down. And I know that's just going to be necessary for the short period of time that I'm actually in deficit until I can at least go back into maintenance and start pushing glycogen back into the cells. So that's where we're at the end of week 1 of No Testosterone. I suspect by the time I come back to you, I'm probably going to be on estrogen of some amount or another, or at least be testing to try to find out what I need to do. Thankfully, I have discovered that LabCorp here can turn around my E2 test in 24 to 48 hours. Whereas with Quest, it was taking 4 to 7 days to get a test back, and that is an unbearably long time when you're somebody like me who's constantly tinkering and changing doses and trying to have, ready-made solutions. I don't want to wait once my estrogen crashes, I'm not waiting 5 to 7 days to try to fix it. I need to fix it overnight and know exactly where it's at. So what I may err on the side of doing is just pinning a tiny little bit of estrogen, go get my level checked after the fact and dial it in sort of after the fact, rather than try to find what it is, then try to target. It's gonna be it's either way you slice it, it's gonna be a game. Like either way you slice it, it's gonna take experimentation. And at least I know that if I go a little high, I'll know. I'll get gyno, and then I can dial it back. So luckily, my body is tuned pretty well, so that if I overdose the E, I'm gonna get gyno and no. If I'm not dosing enough, then my D's not, that I'm not going to have the connection with my wife that I'm looking for. My D game's not gonna be ideal, and so I'll know that I have to add some more. And estradiol valerate is a short-acting ester, so that I have a lot more control to sort of fine-tune it. Every 3 days or so, I'll be taking another dose. So if I take something that a week in is not really enough, I can constantly be adjusting on the fly. So there you have it. That's the update. Currently, I'm sitting at about 204 point. We're gonna call it 6 pounds in the morning. I'm on a total of 700 milligrams of gear. I think I'm gonna sit here for the while. We'll see how it goes. It all just depends on how my estrogen level, where it levels out at, and what my experience with dosing the estradiol is. So when I get to the point of dosing it, I will probably make a video. I am nervous to say the least, but since I have experienced such a high amount, and and I know what lows feel like, whatever amount I give myself is, I'm obviously not going to even target, like, the maximum I would give myself is enough to target 30 picograms per milliliter, assuming that I had none. So some of you may be asking, how are you going to dose this? Like, how are you going to know how much to take? Here's what I'm doing. I found a transgender calculator. So I found a calculator online that's for the transgender community, so that men who normal physiological men who have crashed their testosterone with these drugs that they use, and then are trying to get female levels of estrogen, the calculator is designed for them. So you plug in the amount of estrogen that you're considering taking, and it tells you what your total picograms per milliliter should be. Now, is this an exact science? Probably not. But for those of you who are curious how I'm going to be targeting a certain amount of serum concentration of estradiol, that's how I'm doing it. I think the dose is like 0.2 milligrams every 3 days. I can't remember. I have to go back and look. It's a tiny little amount. It's going to be a drop. So a tiny little bit so I would be targeting about 30 picograms. So worst case scenario, let's say that right now I have 20 and I pin 30. I pin enough to get 30 while I'm at 50. I'm barely over the top end of the reference range. My gyno will fluff up a little bit. I'll dial it back. So worst case scenario, I should be well within striking distance of the target goal, unless, of course, I happen to be like my wife, in which case it's going to be a total disaster. Because she was told by a doctor that the replacement dose of testosterone for women was 20 milligrams per week. She took 20 milligrams of testosterone and had a 660 nanogram per deciliter testosterone level. Her testosterone level was higher than my son's, who's in puberty right now. She was turning into a man rapidly on 20 milligrams of testosterone per week. She apparently is super sensitive to testosterone. So hopefully we're not in the same boat and I pin some minuscule amount of estrogen and turn into a tranny overnight. Who knows? I guess anything is possible in this crazy world we're living in. But whatever happens, you guys will get a front row seat to the disaster. So, as always, thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one.